What's up, everyone? Welcome to Sabrina Talks. I'm Sabrina if you're new. If you're not, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, today on Sabrina Talks, we are going to be talking about the last two episodes of Cruel Summer Season 1. If you haven't seen my previous videos where I talked about episodes 1 through 4 and then episodes 5 through 9, no, that's a lie, 5 through 8, go check out those videos. It'll be up in my cards and in my description down below. Now let's get right into it because I have a lot to say about these last two episodes. Let's kick it off with episode 9. Episode 9 has been the most uncomfortable I've been watching this show because this episode we get to see Kate and Martin like acting like a married couple, which gross. We start off the episode in 94 where Kate is in therapy. She's talking about, her relationship with Martin, and the therapist is trying to say, like, do you know the concepts of grooming, and trying to get her to realize that she was being groomed. And she reveals to the therapist that her relationship with Martin was not always, kidnapper and kidnappee. It was at first like a friendship that blossomed into more. In episode 8, we saw that Kate stepped up into Martin's house, but in episode 9, we see that she slept over and then she was supposed to go to school the next day. That was the plan between her and Martin, but she didn't end up doing that because she was like, oh, well, I'm a terrible liar and I wouldn't know what to say about where I've been, which fair. But my question with that whole situation is she was supposed to walk to school in the neighborhood where a bunch of other kids live, leaving Martin Harris's house. How was that going to work out? And then was she going to go home, like to her actual house after school? Or was she supposed to go back to Martin's house? All of that was just never going to work out from the jump because they didn't talk about what she was going to do. Once Martin came home and was like freaking out because Kate's mom was questioning him, and then she's over here burning pizza, doing all kinds of nonsense. So he was just paranoid. So he's like, you gotta leave. Like, let's get out. You gotta go somewhere, but you cannot stay here. Because he's like, I'm going to lose my job. I'm gonna get arrested, blah, 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 blah. So they're like trying to figure out what they were gonna do. But as they go into the living room, he gets a phone call from the police, I guess, telling him that Kate is now officially a missing person. Now, my question with that is, why is the police calling him? I know he's like the principal or the vice principal of their school, but I don't see why the cops need to call him. Like, I would understand if the principal called him, was like, hey, this girl's a missing student now, but that just didn't make sense to me. But that's, a little minute detail. But now that she's officially a missing person, they freak out even more in case, like, well, I'll just go home now and just like say I was just out, like, whatever. And he was like, well, no, that's not gonna make sense. You said you're a bad liar. Da, 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 da. Homegirl should have just went home. I'm sorry, but she should have been like, oh, I'm officially a missing person. We could have saved all of this if she would have just took her behind home that night. As they're like freaking out, Kate's like, well, how about we do something to distract ourselves so we can think of a good solid plan. So she's like, you got any games? And he's like, no, not really. And he's like anxious as she's like walking around the house. And then she suggests to play Never Have I Ever. Lord Jesus. I was like, Kate, Miss Ma'am, no. And then what made it even more gross to me is that Kate was really the one who was like laying down the flirtation, and he was just eating it up. He was trying to get her to like ask if she's ever kissed somebody older, and I'm like, gross. Please leave this young girl alone. And we jump to day 21 of Kate being in the house / missing, and they're like having a great old time. They're kissing, like I said, gross. Martin's over here talking about run us a shower. Excuse me, sir, us? This child is 17, maybe 16, maybe something like that. And you are however old, because we never disclosed his age, and you want to take a shower with this minor? Sir.
Jail, right away.
We jump to day 34 where they're having a nice little relaxation on the couch, cuddling up. And somebody rings the doorbell on a Sunday, and they both freak out because they're like, who's ringing my doorbell? But as they find out, it is Greg Turner because his tire got a flat. They panic because they're like, oh my God, Greg Turner, like somebody who would know Kate. And Martin is trying his best to like make sure Greg doesn't come inside the house, but Greg's like, I'm gonna do what I want, sorry. There's another little minute thing that doesn't make sense to me about Greg using the phone to call his wife, but I guess I'll talk about that towards the end because it has more relation to do with something that happens in episode 10. We get to day 64, which is I think around Halloween, and Kate's like, I kind of just want to like hang around some people, I can wear a mask. Like, she's getting a bit antsy about just hiding away inside the house. but she's still in the mindset of like, okay, well, we're trying to, preserve this relationship, so she like just accepts it some more. But day 89 is where things starting to get a bit more tense. Kate is now officially like depressed. Like she's like, it's Christmas, I want to go to the mall, I want to hang out with my friends, I want to see my family. Like she's just full on depressed now. Martin, obviously not wanting Kate to get too depressed to where she tries to leave, decides, oh, let me go to the mall, try to cheer her up a bit, get her one of those pretzels she was talking about. And while he's at the mall, first of all, the cops come rushing in. I don't know why they ever need to be rushing to the mall like that. Even if it's somebody just stealing something, ain't no way y'all need to be rushing into the mall like that. And why did no one see this man looking guilty as hell with his hands up? Someone should have said something. But anyways, Jeanette sees Martin. She's like, ooh, Martin's here. That means his house is free, because the weirdo that she is decides, let me go sneak into his house once again. And there lies the infamous Jeanette saw me scene. So let's get into that. Jeanette breaks into the Martin's house while Kate is in the living room calling Jamie. But thankfully she hears that someone is coming and realizes it's definitely not Martin. Runs up the stairs and like turns off everything. But thankfully for Jeanette and Kate, Martin put up them stupid curtains, so it took a little bit longer for her to get inside the door and not be able to see Kate. Jeanette picks up the snow globe that Kate was just holding and then hears a noise that comes from upstairs, realizes she's probably not alone in this house, and books it out of the house. Kate later comes down, turns off all the lights and looks out the windows, and she just sees someone riding away. Now what she assumes is it's Jeanette, because she heard Jeanette's voice. She picked up Jeanette's necklace that fell, which I don't know how that fell, but she did that, and then she saw somebody riding away on a bike. But from that scene alone, we see that Jeanette and Kate never made eye contact, so we get the feeling that Kate was actually really lying on Jeanette. The episode continues, and once Martin and Kate go to sleep, Kate sneaks out and goes to her house, which I was very surprised that she actually did that. I didn't think she would ever like really leave, but she went to her house and sees like her parents laughing, which sadly was literally the wrong moment for her to come, because they was literally crying not 5 seconds later, and she's like, oh man, look how happy they are without me, and it's on Christmas Eve, wow, my life really must suck. And of course she goes tra-la-la-ing back to Martin's house. Christmas Day is day 119 of Kate being missing / being inside Martin's house. She's still very much like living freely within the house. It's Christmas, so she gets some presents from Martin. She gets a beautiful pearl necklace, which sure. And then she puts on that red dress that we saw her in previously in the couple of episodes before, and they have a nice little Christmas dinner. And then Martin calls her out for sneaking out on Christmas Eve, and he's like, I have done everything that I needed to do to make you happy here. Why aren't you happy? Obviously because this child is trapped inside this house. And she's like, you're making it seem like you're my kidnapper. And he was like, why would you ever say that? So they're arguing about whether or not Kate should leave, and she's like, where's my suitcase? Where my suitcase at? And of course he goes, oh, it's in the basement. Now all of us is going, oh god, don't go in that basement, Kate, you know it's not in there. She goes into the basement trying to go look for her suitcase, realizes obviously the suitcase is not in there, and Martin, his creepy self, locks this child in the basement. Now my question with this scene is, where did this man find that key from? Because was he just sitting around with this key always in his pocket? Like, did he plan this before they even had dinner, that he was going to lock her in the basement today? Also, why does his basement have a key? That's suspicious. The episode ends with Kate banging on the door, asking to be let out, and Martin putting on a record player to like drown out Kate's screams, and that's it for episode 9. I'm really surprised they really gave us like the whole episode to be dedicated to what happened while Kate was missing. I'm really glad that they did that. So with episode 9 out the way, let's get into the season finale of Cruel Summer. Episode 10 starts off with the beginning of the court case. We see Jeanette and Kate's lawyer doing their opening statements. Jeanette's lawyer is trying to emphasize the fact that, you know, they're not really out here trying to say Kate didn't go through a bunch of crap. They're just trying to get to the truth and say that what she did on the Marsha Bailey show was wrong and inaccurate. We also see Kate in 94 getting ready to go on the Marsha Bailey show. As we already know, she was not here for this show. Her mom's trying to put her in all these like really innocent looking things, and she's just not having it. She goes onto the show, obviously names Jeanette Turner, and when she comes back, parents are pissed. I mean, Greg and Jeanette were watching it, and Greg's like, no, she can't do that. How can she do that? Like, that's illegal. Everybody's absolutely pissed, and we also find out in 95 in the court case that Jeanette is suing for defamation for the tune of $11 million. Now, this was the 90s. That's still a lot of money in the 90s. Like, it's a lot of money now, but back in then, oh my God, that's so much money. And I'm with all of the news reporters, Jeanette. How we end up at $11 million. Day one of the court case ends and we see Jeanette and Kate leaving and being just swarmed by paparazzi and reporters. And then we get a scene in 95 where Jamie and Jeanette are talking. This was like a we're rekindling our romance kind of supportive. They was holding hands. Jamie talking about I like you. Jeanette smiling all happily. And I'm like, Jeanette, honey, this boy punched you last year. Why are you running back to this man? I know you still got feelings lingering, but he punched you. And then also discarded you when his girlfriend came back from being missing. I don't like that. On the second day of the court case, we see Kate on the stand and Jeanette's lawyer, you know, talking to her and asking her questions. And she was like, so can you tell me how you ended up being kidnapped? And she was like, oh, well, you know, Martin offered me a ride home. He drugged me on his soda. And then next you know, I was in the basement. We all know that was a lie. This is the first time I think we're hearing that that's the way she was claiming to the police and to everybody. That's how she got kidnapped. Technically, though, I will say Kate wasn't lying. Martin did offer her a ride home at one point. Martin also did drug her at one point. And she did end up in the basement at one point. Did they all happen in the same session? No, but, you know, technicalities. Jeanette's lawyer, also knowing that Kate is lying on the stand, was like, tell me what's on this piece of paper here and tell me what's being said in these chat logs. And then obviously everybody figures out that she went to Martin's house willingly. She looks pissed at the fact that her secret got revealed at court, but I'm like, Miss Ma'am, I don't know why you look so upset that your secret got out, because you shouldn't have been lying about this from the jump. Now, I understand why, because, you know, you don't want to take away from the fact that you were kidnapped and, like, you don't want people to not take you seriously. But now, of course, Kate's lawyer is pissed because he was like, why didn't you tell me this? You should have told me this. And she also finds out from the lawyer that Ashley was Bernanke or whatever that name was. And she, like, was so shocked. But what I don't like is that we never got to see a confrontation between Ashley and Kate. Like, I would have liked to see her be like, what the heck? And at least have Ashley explain herself. But Ashley didn't pop up nowhere throughout this whole episode besides in the chat log. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I just knew you wanted someone to talk to. But why couldn't we have this in as an actual scene? Who knows? Also in 95, we see Jamie go visit Ben. And Ben's like, why are you here? Get out of my face. I don't want to see you. Which, rightfully so. But what I do like, I like that Jamie's on this apology mission train. I mean, don't nobody gotta forgive him because that man still needs some help. But at least from that whole encounter, he got to say like, hey, you can still be mad at me, that's fine, but you don't need to be mad at Vince because Vince ain't do nothing, which is true. And then that leads us to Ben go visiting Vince at the like fake Blockbuster store. And he's like, hey, I'm sorry, I miss you. I, you know, was holding out my anger to the wrong person. And Vince, rightfully so, was like, I can't even appreciate you saying I miss you because it's been so dang long. Ben tries to justify why he was, you know, so upset because Vince is like, I don't even know what I did wrong. I was saying the same thing. I was like, there was no way that him just holding his little hand out in front of everybody was the reason that Ben wasn't talking to him for a year. But he was like, you was trying to out us. And he was like, sir, I wasn't caring about nobody. You was hurt and going into the hospital. You're my boyfriend. Obviously, I'm going to care. And obviously, I'm going to try to be near you. Ben was like, well, I was vulnerable and scared. And Vince was like, you don't think I was scared? I'm black and gay in Texas. And see, I'm not gonna go into a whole race thing, but like that's what white people sometimes be doing. You be trying to say like, you be like, well, I'm so marginalized. You be like, yeah, okay, but so am I, to even more of extreme than you are. Like, you thought you had something to worry about? I surely got something to worry about. I just love that whole scene. But though I would like Vince to be happy with his little boo, he definitely needed to say his piece and get that off his chest, and that needs to have been said. Because if he would have just ran into Ben's arm all happy dappy, I'd have been like, no, that doesn't make sense. That's not logical. We get a little scene with Kate and Mallory. Mallory finds out that Ashley was actually Bernanke, and then Kate makes a call, and they both was like, maybe it's time for you to do the thing that Sylvia said you should do. I thought it was going to be like some hypnotherapy kind of situation, but in fact, she calls Jeanette, and they have a little powwow the next day when they're supposed to be at court, but they decide, hey, we're gonna sort this out ourselves, which I thought they were going to do. I was really hoping that they were going to do that. It didn't turn out the way I fully wanted it to. Like, they had a little moment of them screaming at each other, which was great, but I wanted kind of some more of that because I really wanted them to go ham on each other, but I think that's just the drama side of me. During the little powwow, they actually start being somewhat real with each other. They kind of go through the details of that night once again. And what they realize, or at least what Jeanette realizes then tells Kate, is that Kate did not see Jeanette. Kate saw Mallory, because what happened is that person that she saw on the bike riding away was actually Mallory, because Mallory saw that Jeanette was sneaking into the house, which once again, Jeanette, you gotta do better. And so Mallory obviously saw that somebody was inside the house and saw that Jeanette was trying to break in, and she was like, ooh, this is gonna be juicy. She's about to get caught. Let me go hide and watch and laugh about it. But what ends up happening is, obviously that whole scene happens with Kate and Jeanette inside the house. Jeanette flees the house. Kate finally comes downstairs. But by the time Jeanette already left, Kate now finally came down, and Mallory goes to go follow Jeanette, but hops on her bike, hears a noise, and then looks to the window. So that's the point where Kate says, oh, I thought we made eye contact. I don't know how sis thought she was making eye contact from somebody who was over all the way in the street. Did you see how big that land is that he had? Like, ma'am, she was not outside the window. But whatever, that's what Kate really envisions. She swore it was Jeanette because Mallory's bike has the little card on it and a boombox in it. And that day of the garden party where Jeanette, Mallory, and Vince like threw water balloons at the party and like escaped, she saw Jeanette on the bike with the card, but that was what we knew from the beginning of the series was Mallory's bike, and she just accidentally took it because Mallory had her bike. So in Kate's mind, that bike is Jeanette's, not the case. So they have that big, oh my God, it was actually Mallory that I saw. And Kate, actually apologized. She was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I wouldn't have gone through all of that if I really didn't 100% believe that I saw you. After they have that big realization, Jeanette's like, hey, can I ask what actually happened between you and Martin? And she goes to tell her like, oh, we was friends, and then we kind of came before more than friends, and then I ended up being kidnapped. And she was like, hey, I don't remember something and I need to go to the basement to kind of jog my memory. Will you come with me? Now me as a melanated, anxious person, I was like, sis, don't go in that basement with her. She gonna end up locking you in the basement. On Twitter, somebody was like, what if Mallory was like all of a sudden at the house and locked both of them in the basement? Honestly, I would have thought that was hilarious. Like, that would have been a great twist, but obviously that doesn't happen. They just go down to the basement, and Kate kind of just remembers the day before she got rescued. And that's also where we meet Annabelle, which ended up being Martin's dad's gun that he like shot himself with, and that's like a family heirloom or whatever. And Martin, his master manipulator self, goes, oh, I'm so sorry for all that I've done. Please go live your life, da da da, and like aims to go kill himself. Now, I don't know if he was actually going to kill himself or if that was just a whole like manipulative plot he was going to do, but he didn't end up doing it. He goes, drops the gun, and like screams in the corner because sure. And now smart girl Kate was like, nah, I'm picking up that gun because what you're not gonna do is shoot me. I'm gonna get ready to shoot you. And we know Kate is a hunter, so she already got the aim ready, locked and loaded. But once he sees the fact that Kate got the gun and is like actual serious about maybe shooting him, he turns on the more manipulative moves again and was like, oh no, you can't do this. You love me. We love each other. We wouldn't do this. Like, we'll figure it out. Like, it's fine. It's fine. No. Homegirl thankfully shoots this man and he like plops onto the floor and just like bleeding out. And she like stayed by his side throughout the whole night because Stockholm Syndrome. And then I think she called the cops either that night or in the morning and was like, hey, it's me. And that's how she got rescued. Kate shooting Martin in the basement is the thing that I wanted to elaborate on with the point I made in episode 9 about Greg having a flat tire and needing to call his wife. The thing that doesn't make sense to me with that is how did everybody hear this gunshot that night? Because she shot him in the basement. Basements are underground, and that basement definitely in Martin's house was underground. So how did this gunshot echo so loudly that it hit Jeanette's house and it hit Vince's house? Like, does that mean Jeanette and Vince was right around the corner from Martin's house? But then if that's the case, why did Greg need to go get somebody to come pick him up when he could have just walked home if they was so close. Now listen, I don't hear gunshots on the regular, so maybe that's just me not knowing how loud gunshots can actually be. But that seems like such a stretch for me to believe that Jamie, Jeanette, and Vince all heard a gunshot that came from somebody's basement blocks away. But like I said, this is another little thing that I'm like, does that make sense? Once Mallory leaves Martin's house, she goes to Jeanette's house and like goes yelling at her about sneaking into the house again. And she was like, do you get some kind of sick, twisted thing out of this? And calls her a weirdo, which this is the one time I will actually agree with Mallory, because Jeanette is absolutely a weirdo. But she was like, you know what? Why are you even concerned what I'm doing? Because we're not even friends anymore. If you're so concerned about this snow globe, take it. And that's how we find out Mallory ended up with the snow globe. One thing that I'm also like, okay, is Jeanette tells Kate that it was never about the money. She just wanted the truth to come out because, you know, she just kind of wanted to feel popular and she wanted the sun to shine on her and just to feel beautiful and pretty and whatever. But I'm like, Jeanette is acting as if this girl was a complete loner and was hideous, had zero friends, her home life was terrible. Like, the way that she craved to be the center of attention and to be like Kate so much just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm like, you had two great best friends. Well, Mallory was a bit but you had two friends that you was doing fun things with. You had a home life that was great. You had parents that were actually caring and, you know, showed you that they loved you on a daily basis. Like, sis was not that much of a loner for her to be acting like this. At least in my opinion. I'm not trying to dismiss Jeanette's feelings, but things were not that dire in your life. After Kate and Jeanette's little chit chat, Kate goes to the courthouse and was like, oh, I'm letting you know that Jeanette did not see me. Like, I thought she did, but after we had a discussion, we realized that we didn't, you know, she's innocent, blah, blah, blah. And then Kate gets a little bit of taste of the reporters like hounding her about not so positive things. Then we get a scene where Kate goes to visit Mallory. Now, I was itching for this scene. I was like, yes, Kate about to lay her a new one, but that did not happen. And I was highly disappointed by this scene. Kate comes into Mallory's room and we see that Mallory is packing. Now, that doesn't make sense to me because why is Mallory packing? Where's she going? Because ain't nobody told her between the time that Jeanette and Kate just figured out that Mallory saw her and the time Kate got to Mallory's house. Ain't nobody told Mallory that Kate now knows and that Jeanette now knows. So where's she going? Why is she packing? And then Kate, you know, starts off like, how could you do this to me? Why would you do this? You saw me. And Mallory was like, well, I saw an adult, you know, living freely throughout the house. I figured it was Martin's girlfriend or sister or somebody. I didn't even think it was you because I just saw the back of the person's head and that was it. I don't like Mallory, but I will give that to her. She only saw the back of her head. Why would she assume it'd be Kate? She didn't know at the time that Kate and Martin had any kind of relationship. She didn't know they even knew each other, so understandable. But Mallory says, I didn't really realize that it was you until you got rescued and you was coming out of Martin's house. And then she tells Kate that she knew if she told her secret about seeing Kate early around Christmas, her secret would be out that she wasn't always in the basement. So she's like, obviously I'm not going to tell your secret and tell my secret. Why would I do that? That's rude. But my issue is, why didn't you at least tell Kate? Y'all was becoming the bestest of friends. You was listening to all of her therapy sessions, and you mean to tell me you decided not to tell Kate a single thing? Ma'am! Yeah, you might not have wanted the world to know because that would have undermined Kate's story, but you at least could have told Kate. So all of this could have been avoided, one, if Kate and Jeanette had a conversation at some point in 94, but obviously that wasn't going to happen. But this also could have been avoided if when Kate and Mallory started becoming friends, she was like, hey, by the way, I want to let you know that I think I saw you and I didn't realize until you got rescued. And, you know, maybe they would have talked about seeing Jeanette and they would have realized, oh, maybe Jeanette didn't actually see you. Mallory's whole logic irritated me. And then what irritated me more was she's like, well, I'm just going to get on the Greyhound and leave town. And Mallory was like, how could you do that to me and leave me here? Why would you do that? And then they hug. Ma'am, you spent a whole year so angry with the Turners, so upset with Jeanette Turner, slandering her left and right because you swore she saw you and ain't do nothing. But now Mallory gonna tell you the same thing. And you're like, oh, well, it's okay. Oh, come here, give me a hug. No, I will not accept it. I don't care what explanation somebody gives me. That's unacceptable. Because, yeah, you know, she might have had a little feelings, which we'll get into later. And, you know, Mallory was the only good person to her within this past year. But she still, like everybody else in your life, was lying to you. So how can you just easily be okay with it when you was just so upset with the world? Okay, Kate. While we get in the whole little wrap-up part of this episode, we see Jeanette on the Marsha Bailey show, which is good because, you know, she at least gets to say her side of her story and, you know, say her piece. But what makes it creepy and just proves once again that Jeanette is a weirdo is homegirl is wearing exactly what Kate was wearing when she went on the Marsha Bailey show. She has the black headband for God knows what reason because she don't even got that much hair. She has the pearl necklace. She has the cardigan and a skirt on and some heels on. And I'm like, ma'am, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this again? You could have kept on your nice little 95 grunge outfit, but now you talking about you got a great boyfriend. Once again, why are we with Jamie? And then you just dressing and emulating Kate again? I swear this child stresses me out. We get one little last wrap-up scene with Mallory and Kate. They go for a drive and, you know, do what they did last time and park up somewhere. But instead of Mallory being inside the car and Kate dancing outside, they're both dancing outside. And then they kiss. Now, I told y'all in that episode of Happy Birthday Kate Wallace where they're at the roller rink, and I was like, that seems very I Love Women-esque, like that seemed very queer baity. So I'm not surprised that they ended the show with it. I'm fine with the idea of Kate being something other than straight. I'm fine with Mallory being something other than straight. What my issue is, this does not make sense. Yes, she probably had some feelings for Mallory since the jump. Yes, she probably, you know, is happy to have someone who, like, she trusts and, you know, doesn't feel like lies to her. But we've seen that this is not the case. We see that Mallory's out here lying to her. We see that she was maybe manipulating her once again because she kept trying to feed a certain narrative to Kate. You still very much need therapy. You have not gotten over this kidnapping situation. Why are you trying to jump into another relationship with someone who you can't fully trust? We already saw how Mallory was with Jeanette and Vin. She seemed to have done better. She seemed to be more caring with Kate. But homegirl was lying to you for maybe a year. Once again, I have no issue with this being like a gay thing. My issue is the logic behind the two characters. She went from Jamie, who was a mess, because Jamie's terrible. Then we went to Martin, who's also terrible and a groomer and disgusting. Now we're going to Mallory, who, yes, is lesser of the two evils, but still evil herself. Miss Ma'am, I need you to go back to therapy. I need you to cut off everybody and I need you to reevaluate your life and go look inward, because your attraction to these type of people needs to be looked at. But I'm gonna just keep it at that for this topic because that just makes me so mad. But what we thought was going to be the end of the episode with that scene turns out no, they still had one more scene for us. And this last scene really, honestly, truly cracked me up. I know people were like extremely shocked and like flabbergasted and all of that, but honestly, I just thought this was hilarious. What happens in this last scene is we see Jeanette coming in to Martin's house once again in 94, but this is popular Jeanette, and we see that she has the same sneakers that Kate's been wearing in 93, and I like that they paralleled that kind of shot where you see her Reeboks walking into the house, and you're like, oh, maybe it's Kate. But then you look up and it's like, oh, well, obviously it's Jeanette just in Kate mode. So she goes into the house and then all of a sudden she starts hearing, hello, can you hear me? Is this Martin? Like, hey, it's Kate Wallace. I'm trapped. And Jeanette like almost reaches for the handle until she hears that it's Kate Wallace. And she's like, wait a minute. Do I want to do that? And then she does like a little smirk and the season ends. Now, I thought this was hilarious solely because Jeanette never really lied to anybody. She said, I did not see Kate that day on Christmas Eve in 93. She was not wrong. She never did see Kate when she was kidnapped. She definitely heard her though, but nobody asked her if she heard Kate. Nobody asked her if she ever went back to the house after that moment in 93. Like, And I just know I've already seen so much people on like the I hate Jeanette train. Like, see, I told you she was terrible. She's a sociopath, whatever, whatever. I personally still don't believe that. Like, I was never on the Jeanette hate train. You can see throughout my previous videos, I've always admitted that Jeanette is a complete weirdo and a creep. But that doesn't mean she's a bad person, and that doesn't technically mean that she's a sociopath or a terrible person. Because I think from the beginning of this season, they never made Jeanette out to be mean. They never made Jeanette to be evil, because like the first time we see her and they're like, oh, let's do illegal things on our like summer bucket list, and Jeanette's like, I don't want to do illegal things, but I guess we can do it, but as long as it's not immoral. Is she creepy? Absolutely. Does she do weird behaviors? Absolutely. But she's never, at least in my opinion, evil. Now you can say she knew about it this whole time and still didn't save Kate, but what I personally think happened is this was probably around her birthday. Like maybe the week before, a couple of days before her birthday, she goes to Martin's house as like a birthday thing for herself, because once again, weirdo behavior. And then here's Kate, and then maybe once she gets home, or maybe the next day, she calls up the cops and was like, I was walking past Martin's house, I heard something kind of suspicious, maybe you need to go check it out. And then that led to the time period where Martin was like, the cops just came to my house, they were asking about you, they're on to me, like da 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 da, and that led to him obviously dying and then Kate being rescued. So I personally kind of believe that if Jeanette did not go to that house again in 94 and didn't hear Kate in the basement, Kate might have still been in the basement. I don't see a reason for the cops to come to Martin's house in 94 when this is way past the time that Kate's been missing. Like, yeah, they could be coming around for more information, but like, he was so shook that they came to his house and was asking about her that I personally think someone tipped them off and was like, hey, something suspicious is going on at Martin Harris's house, go check it out. And I think that person was Jeanette. Especially if she heard the gunshot on her birthday, the next day when she was like hanging out with the two popular best friends, and they found out that Kate was rescued, and Jeanette was like, oh my god, did they find her body? Who killed her? Like, she obviously automatically thought she died because she heard a gunshot the night before. So in like timeline sense, I think that makes the most logical sense to me, but I'm no writer of the show, so I could be fully wrong. That wraps up what happened and my thoughts on episodes 9 and 10. Let's talk about my thoughts for this season overall. I quite enjoyed this show. I don't think it was as good as I maybe wanted it to have been. Like, none of the mysteries, the shocks and the twists and the whatever was, you know, jaw-droppingly like shocking. I was just like, oh, okay. Or most of the time I could probably kind of predict what would have happened. I just might have not predicted the certain way they got to it. It's definitely better than like Riverdale and Pretty Little Liars. I mean, those have their own like distinct version of like the teen mystery. This is more like definitely more serious. I still wasn't a fan of a lot of things in the season finale. I don't like the fact that we didn't see a lot of the side characters in the season finale. Jeanette's family, like, we didn't see her brother, we didn't see her mother, we didn't see Ashley, we never got that confrontation. Like, that's something that I really wanted to have seen. That I don't like the fact that Kate just easily forgives Mallory. We barely got any scenes with the parents, finding out that, you know, Kate willingly went to Martin's house and that whole ordeal. Like, I really would have loved to see that. I doubt they'll show that in season 2. I personally don't think we need a season 2. They could have left it at that. The only reason I'd be like down with a season 2 is if it's like anthology series where it's just a whole different crime and a whole different like set of characters. But a season 2 that's continuing this story doesn't make sense to me, so hopefully they don't do that. I really enjoyed all of the actors. I think they did such a fantastic job. The soundtrack, the fashion, the aesthetic, except for 95. 95 was a little too dark, but I get they're trying to give the like grunge feel, but that was a little bit too much. Special shout outs to Olivia Holt and Kiara Olivia, because they really needed to hone in on these, you know, 3 different versions of themselves, and they did a fantastic job in my opinion. I also really appreciate the details and the parallels that they did throughout this series. Like I mentioned with the Reeboks, showing the Reeboks going into Martin's house on the 3 different like occasions. We see in episode 1 that like Jeanette's dad is like going for some cake and they have like a nice conversation there. And then the last episode we see Jeanette going to get some ice cream and the dad comes and they like share a little moment there, so that was like a nice parallel. Same with Happy Birthday Jeanette Turner and Happy Birthday Kate Wallace. I like seeing that. I think they did a great job of balancing each person's story. Like, I didn't feel like I got too much of Jeanette and not enough of Kate, or vice versa. So I think they did a great job with that. But yeah, like I said, I thought this was an entertaining series. Definitely not as juicy as I might have wanted it to be, but it was still very, very good. I will definitely probably watch season 2. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about these 2 episodes, how you feel about the season finale, how you feel about the season in general. Let me know all of that in the comments. Also, you can talk to me on my social media. I'm at Sabrina Talks 2 on Instagram and Twitter, and at Sabrina Talks 2U on TikTok. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Share this video with your friends so we can all talk about Cruel Summer. Subscribe to my channel because, like I said, I will be talking about Love Victor. I will be talking about Elite, the Gossip Girl review, talk about a lot of things on this channel, so stay tuned for that. Once again, thank you so much for watching. As always, please remember to be safe, be smart, be kind, and I'll see y'all in my next video. Bye, guys.